Hello, I'm Gill at engVid, and today we have a lesson on the use of the verb should, and it's an auxiliary modal verb, should. So there are particular ways you can use it. Okay, and this lesson links with two other lessons. There's one on could and there's one on would. So please look out for those as well. Right, so should. How do you use should? So first of all, you can use it in a question. For example, should we invite the neighbours to our party? You're having a party, the people who live next door, the neighbours, you might be thinking, well, they're nice people, we get on well with them. We don't want them to be disturbed if the party gets noisy, or they may be upset to know we're having a party and we didn't invite them. So there are all these questions to think about. Should we ask? Should we invite them? Or do you think they will like our other friends? So should we? Should we? It's like saying ought we. So there's another word, ought. Which is also used in the same way. Ought we to? But should is more usual. Should we invite the neighbours to our party? And then you have to decide yes or no. You might invite them and they might say, oh, sorry, we're going out that night already. We have something else. Or they might come. It depends. So, should we? Used as a question. Okay. Meaning, you know, would it be a good idea to? Okay. Second sentence is when you're telling someone what is a sensible thing to do, what is a good idea to do. You should, what you ought to do again. You ought to, you should look both ways before crossing the road. You have to look to see, is there any traffic? Are there cars coming, buses? To be safe, you have to look both ways. So you should look both ways before crossing the road. It's a sensible thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Okay. And then this one is a little bit old-fashioned and it sounds rather formal, but maybe in a formal situation, like if you're taking an exam and the person organising it is being very formal with everybody, or there may be a notice up on the wall somewhere in a room which might say, should you wish to do so, you may go for lunch at 12:30. So should here is the same as saying if. It's just like if. If you like, if you want to, if you wish. To do so is a little bit formal again. That's a little bit formal, but you might see it written up on a notice. So, should you wish to do so, you may go for lunch at 12:30. That is an acceptable time to go if you want to go for lunch. 12:30 is the time. So that's instead of if. Okay, but it's a little bit old-fashioned in style. Okay, another one. This one begins with if, but it's different from the previous one. So somebody may have been asking, how long will it take me to get to London from here? So you may be 2 hours away by car. So the person would reply, if you take the motorway, which is the quickest way, the motorway, you should be there in 2 hours. So there's a very good possibility, almost 100% possibility, that you will be there. Instead of saying will, I mean, that person doesn't know for sure you will be there in 2 hours. Nobody can predict. But you should be 99% sure that you will be. So should is 99% sure or certain that you will be there in 2 hours. It will take you 2 hours driving to arrive in London. Okay, so if you take the motorway, you should be there. There's every possibility that you will be there in 2 hours. Okay, and then finally, the neighbours are back again. So it looks like you didn't invite the neighbours to the party, and perhaps they were upset, either because you didn't invite them or because of the noise that was made at your party with maybe loud music and so on, going late into the night. So we should have invited the neighbours to our party, but it's too late now. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the neighbours are maybe banging on the wall, trying to get us to stop the noise. So we should have invited them, then they would be here enjoying it with us. So we should have means it's too late. We should have, but that opportunity has gone. It's in the past. We should have invited the neighbours to our party, but it's too late now. Okay. So at the just finally for this part of the lesson, to show you the different ways of writing should have, this is in full, should have, like there, and you can abbreviate it or contract it with apostrophe VE. So the apostrophe shows that the H and A are missing, because when people are speaking, they might say should have, should have. So you just make a V sound at the end, should have, like that, should have. So you might also see it written like that if somebody is writing exactly the way somebody spoke, or it's just the style of the writing, they've decided to use an abbreviation. Okay. Sometimes just people just say shoulda, I shoulda, we shoulda invited, shoulda. So sometimes you get should with an A at the end, but the A is really this, so it's not really correct, but people say shoulda, we shoulda done that. So people say it and it sounds like that. But there's one which I definitely will tell you is not correct. So this one, should of, is wrong. As I've said in the other two lessons, sometimes people put could of, should of, would of. The of is completely wrong because it has nothing to do with have. It's have, not of. Okay, so should of is wrong. So there we are. I've crossed it out in red because it is not correct. You'll see it a lot. People write it on Facebook and so on. They put should of, but it's not right. So please try to avoid that if you can. Okay. Right, so we'll move on to the second part of the lesson, and I have a little test for you. Okay, so here is a little test on using the word should, and we have 4 situations. Okay, so first of all, this is to advise someone to take an umbrella as it might rain later. So how would you say that using the word should? Okay, so you're talking to somebody, you're saying you, maybe begin with you. So, you, So, you should take an umbrella. And then the rest of the sentence can stay the same. You should take an umbrella when you go out, as it might rain later. It could rain later. You should take an umbrella. If you don't want to get wet, you should take an umbrella. Okay, so it's advice. Right, next one. You're asking a question. You're asking if you need to buy a ticket before getting on the train. So, you're not sure. Well, most people do need to do that, but this is a different way of asking. So you're saying, making it a question, so it's got to have a question mark at the end, and you have to use should. So how would you do that? Okay, so as it's a question, you really need to start the sentence with should. Okay, so should, and then it's about you, what you do. So should I buy a ticket before getting on the train? So all of that stays the same, and then question mark at the end. So should I? If you remember, should we invite the neighbours to our party? And should I? So it's should first with a question, then the personal pronoun, should I buy a ticket before getting on the train? Question mark. Okay, good. Next one, you're feeling rather bad and sorry because you forgot to send your sister or some family member a birthday card. You missed her birthday. Disaster. You missed somebody's birthday. So, how do you say when it's too late now? It's that too late now use of should. So, what would you say using should about this situation? So, it's you that didn't do it. So, you start with I. Okay, I. So then it's should. I should. And because it's one of those situations where it's too late now to do anything about it, I should have. Okay, I should have. And then we've got send here, but we have to use the past participle. I should have sent. I should have sent my sister a birthday card, but I forgot. I should have sent my sister. Okay, that's that one. And then finally, someone in the street, they're looking for the nearest bank. Okay, and they ask you, where is the nearest bank, please? Excuse me, could you tell me where the nearest bank is? And you know that it's only 5 minutes walk away, just round the corner. So you can say, oh, it's just round this corner. if you keep walking, you in 5 minutes. So keep walking, it's round the corner. You in 5 minutes. Can you remember? You should be there. You can say you should be there. So you can say, just keep walking round the corner. You should be there in 5 minutes. It's very unlikely that they will take longer or they won't arrive for some reason. You should be there in 5 minutes. It's not very far. Okay, so I hope that's been a useful lesson on the different ways of using should. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the lesson, there are 2 other lessons which are similar to this, one on could and one on would, and they're all very similar, so please look out for those as well. Okay, so thanks for watching and see you again soon. Bye for now.